Hi, everyone. If I've learned anything about these fast and furious webinars, it's just jump right in. Get started. So, Harold, I'm going to turn this over to you. As people have questions, you are muted. You can unmute yourself and ask questions, or simply use the chat function to ask those questions. Otherwise, it's all yours.
Great. Howdy, everybody. I was laughing with Mel before we started letting everybody in that if you give me a microphone, I'm happy to talk. I don't know if what I have to say has any value for people, but I love an open microphone. I promise I'll do my best to keep this to, as promised, 20 tips in 20 minutes. Before we get started, I wanted to reach back a little bit and tell you how I got started in sales, mostly by accident. So the past 30 plus years, I've worn just about every type portable exhibits when a lot of people had never even seen what a pop-up exhibit was. I sold modular and custom exhibits for an East Coast custom house. I hired and managed a team of 12 salespeople. I even created and ran a sales training program. For the last, on and off for the last 30 years, I've traveled the country speaking with people like you, learning from some of the best salespeople in our industry on the street. And the funny thing is, I did all of this without ever having read a single book on sales or sales training. And even if I hadn't even taken a sales course for the first 20 years of that run. But since then, because of meeting people like you, I've learned and I've collected what I'm thinking of as a greatest hits collection. They're not all sales tips. Some of them are just observations. But I think if you hear me out, by the time we're done here, you'll be able to walk away with a few of these. Not all of them are going to be pertinent to you. You're already doing most of them because none of these are so unique that you're going to go, how did I not know? A lot of these are going to be reminders, but with that as a preface for this, let's just jump in and do 20 and 20. All right, now we've got the first one up there. We all make mistakes. As you know, mistakes happen, but as you've heard said before, it can create great opportunities for your relationship with your client. One obvious example is I had a client who ordered about a dozen lights for their exhibit. Of course, we didn't ship those lights, and the client called from the show floor during instead of going, oh my God, I don't have lights. But because we've got a network, Classic's got distributors everywhere in the country. Within 5 minutes, I made a call and a friendly distributor was able to deliver 12 loaner lights to the client on the show floor. All because a mistake was made on my part. My client now went, holy crap. Within 30 minutes, this guy solved my problems. So mistakes aren't great, but when they happen, they provide you a great sales opportunity. That's number 20. Next one, Mel. 19. After you sell a booth to somebody, have you ever offered to present all their booths a sales presentation for how to run sales on the show floor? It's a great, tremendous opportunity because you're not selling anymore. You're now going into their offices, gathering the 12 people that are going to travel to the show and explain to them, you know it, but you got to tell them, don't sit down, don't eat in your booth, don't smoke a cigarette, and go through some of the basics and just give the experts for them how to get the most out of their trade show. Mel, do me a favor, can we make sure that everybody is muted? Because I'm getting a high-pitched noise that's going to puncture my eardrum. Next, let's just jump to 18. My favorite questions to ask during a discovery meeting with a client is, when the show's over, Mel, have you hit number 18 yet? Because I'm still looking at 19. Well, I'll talk. I'll pretend it's going to be there. Here's my favorite question. When the show's over, potential client, what will your boss use to decide whether or not you were successful at that show or not? It's amazing how many people go to a show without really knowing what the show's goals are. Booth staffers often arrive at the show without knowing what they're there really for, what the primary motivation is. And by asking during a discovery meeting, your client, what their boss is going to use to gauge success. That's a great, simple question that, believe it or not, they might not have even thought about before. Yes, Mel, that looks perfect. Let's go on to number 17. Going to a show. Now, this may sound simple and just obvious to most people, but as a salesperson, when's the last time you went to a show and walked the floor? I'm not talking about during setup when you're there appeasing your client and everything, but I mean after the show starts, all the booths are set up and you now have an opportunity to walk around and see trends, to possibly meet new prospects that you can reach out to after the show. It's an opportunity to take an account manager, a project manager, a designer. I guarantee you, most of your designers haven't been to a show in years. It's a field trip, it's educational, and it's fun. Put that on your list. Next one, Mel, let's go to 16. Back in high school, I had a chemistry teacher, Miss O'Neill, who had a poster on the front of her desk that said, "The only constant is change." I love that. And what I mean to tell you here is consistency can add 5 to 15% to every sale you make. In this case, consistency, I'm going to use the example of every single quote that you send out, you should be including flooring, whether they ask for it or not. Every quote that you send out should include tchotchkes, pens, keychains, something more specific to what your client sells or offers. But by including these before they've even asked for them, they may go, yeah, 90% may say no, but 10% are go, yeah, how much is that carpeting? Yes, how much for keychains? You're going to add sales that are just simple, easy, if you just bring it up and ask. That's number 16. Now let's go to 15. This sounds obvious, but know your stuff. The more you know, the more you're going to sell. Again, some of this is obvious, but never stop learning. End a seminar, read a book about it, and opportunities just like what we're going through here today. But Classic is going to be bringing back after the pandemic our SKUs, Shared Knowledge University soon, and we kind of gently put it out there. We're going to be bringing back SKU, and believe it or not, we already have probably enough for 2 classes. I'm glad that's the way you guys are thinking about it. Keep adding education to your mix of selling. It goes hand in hand. Same goes for your prospects business. Before you go to that first discovery meeting, you should be doing as much research on them and their sales as you can, so you sound like you did your homework. Mel, number 14, please. I love this one. Never send your client information that will help them become better exhibitors. Mel and his marketing team have created little golden nuggets that we have. They're not hidden, but if you don't look for them, you're probably not going to find them. I think under classic exhibits, if you go to the blogs section, you're going to find things like 10 do's and don'ts of graphics, 10 tips to have a successful IND. It's these pieces were not created for you and I to look at. Mel and his team created these for you to capture them and use those to send to prospects and clients. You don't want to reach out every 3 months to your client trying to sell them something. Now you sound like a salesperson. But if you send them marketing tips or humorous little things that relate to their business, now you're not a salesperson, now you're a co-marketer with them. That's wonderful. Now let's go to number 13. It never ceases to amaze me that when a salesperson says, a client will say, hey, how much will it cost? What's the shipping estimate going to be? I'll get that right to you. You go back to your office and you answer 10 phone calls, and that question gets buried underneath notes, and you never get back to the client with a simple question that they might have asked. Do your best to answer that question as fast as you can when you get back to the office. Whether it's, something about graphics, whether it's shipping related, it doesn't really matter. Which leads us to the number 12, Mel. Don't wait, do it now. Do the task when it presents itself. I think it was told to me once, try to touch the paper only once. If you've got to keep touching the same piece of paper multiple times, it slows you down and it diffuses your energy. So when it's asked, as soon as you can, answer that question and then move on to the next one. Clear your desk, touch the paper only once. Number 11, you're going to hate me for this one. When's the last time you cold called to get a new client? Yeah, I know. I don't need it. I have enough clients the way it is right now. It's not important. That's for the new kid on the block. I'm telling you now that your best clients are going to retire. They're going to change jobs. They're going to pass on. There's a whole list of things that's going to happen to them. In order for you to keep your business booming, you need to set aside time for cold calling. It's painful to some of you, but it's critically important to have a sales volume that is consistent and growing, not staying level or going flat. As a matter of fact, I'm going to suggest you don't have to do it every day. Do it what works or is the least uncomfortable for you. Make an appointment with yourself every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Whatever works best for you, put it in your calendar. Don't make appointments during that hour's time. Set aside an hour a week, make those cold calls and grow your client list. Let's go to number 10. You're halfway through. Referrals. The best time to ask a client for a referral is when they're happy, when they first see the booth that you sold them, when they come back from the show and they tell you how well they did. Ask them for the referral. It's not something that you're got your hand out asking. They're happy. They're happy to give it. And sometimes they're not just giving you referrals to friends they know in other businesses. The most obvious referral is other departments within that organization if it's large enough. You can get passed around from one division to another by simply saying, hi, I'm glad we did a good job for you. I'm glad you liked it. Do you have any suggestions of other people that might benefit from my services? If you don't ask, you're not going to get it. Now let's go to number 9. Before this presentation, I reached out to a handful of salespeople that I've known for 20 or 30 years and said I was going to be giving this presentation, and I asked them if they had any ideas to send them to me. Number 10 comes to us from Doug Turpin in North Carolina. He said, be a straight shooter. Be honest with your clients. Good news and bad news needs to be communicated timely and effectively. Giving good news to a client, that's pretty easy. Giving bad news like we exceeded budget on shipping or something like that can be tough, but it goes back to relationships and being straight with your customers because you don't want to be seen as a salesperson. You want to be seen as a partner, a marketing partner. It'll build the relationship. Thanks, Doug. Let's go to number 8. Now we're getting to the good stuff. This one was sent to me by Ms. Kim Merkin. She said, your word is your bond. Once you give your word, do whatever it takes to make it happen. And that was kind of obvious to me. So I asked her, can you give me an example? What made you present that sales tip? She said years ago, she had sold 5 tents to a client. And of course, the tent manufacturer sent those tents to the wrong address. She said what she did the night before the show, she got the owner of the tent company's phone number and was on the phone with them all night long to make sure that it was either rerouted or new tents were printed or something. Whatever it takes to get the job done, you've got to do. Thanks, Kim. Number 7. This one came from Chicago from Steve Moskal. Stop talking. What hasn't changed over the past few decades is the power of listening. You kind of need to ask questions and then shut up. Some of us are, we're so used to doing what we do. You can get to a discovery meeting, the first time a client's getting to know you and your organization, and we just start throwing up information on them about what we do, where we are, who some of our clients are. And while some of that is required to lay the groundwork for your expertise, you can't really learn about your client until you start listening to their answers. So it seems obvious, but ask a question, then zip it and listen to what your client tells you. Number 6. This one came from Steve Deckel. He said, this is more than just a sale. He says, today, most clients are overworked. You're not a salesperson, or you shouldn't be a salesperson in their eyes. You're a member of their marketing team. What cracks me up now is you can play a critical role because of the way people have pared down their organization over the last 2 years. Their marketing team has probably been stripped, and they let go their VP of marketing a year and a half ago. And so today, right now, the VP of sales is running marketing, or worse, an intern who doesn't know poo about marketing is running that company's marketing programs. So you can be the white hat hero coming in and offering the expertise that you come to the table with. If you can get out of the sales way and just become a partner of theirs, you're more than a salesperson, you're a team member. Number 5. This came from Steve's uncle, Bruce Deckel. Give something, get something. Don't screw your, this is quote, don't screw your future self over. If the client asks for a concession, make sure you're asking for something in return. For example, nobody likes giving discounts, but if you have to shave off a couple %, make sure you're getting something in return. Maybe it's a larger deposit. Maybe it's an extra few days in production. Anything so that there's some sort of give and take. Otherwise, you're teaching your client how to ask for more the next time. So it's okay to give something, but try to get something back with the other hand at the same time. Keep it in balance. Number 4. So we don't sell phones. We don't sell boring boxes of paper. You and I are all selling creativity. And when we market, when we try to find new prospects, I love this, and I've been doing it for 20 plus years and telling other people to do it as well. I don't send number 10 envelopes when I'm trying to get a new prospect. I don't send things flat because in the mail, they're probably getting dozens of flat letters in the mail that day. Most don't get opened. If you've got to send an envelope as an introduction, make sure you hand address it. Don't type that label. What I really recommend you do is send something creative, send something fun, emphasis on the word fun. So here's a few examples that have been greatest hits for me along the way. It's funny, when we marketed this presentation, 20 tips in 20 minutes, a couple of you who took my sales class 20 years ago wrote me, you're not going to talk about the ransom note, are you? Which of course made me say, shit, now I got to talk about the ransom note. So I spent one night in front of the TV cutting out letters out of my Rolling Stone magazine. My wife looks over at me and goes, you're making a mess. What are you doing? I said, I have an idea. And by the end of the night, I had a ransom note, different letters that started out, we have your trade show leads. Do as we say, or you'll never see them again. And so what I started doing was I created a bunch of those. I sent out 10 of them, waiting for somebody to respond. That's funny. I knew I was going to make them laugh. And sure enough, 6 people called me back the next day and went, "That's great." The problem is 3 people didn't call me back. They called my boss, complained that they felt threatened. And my boss called me into the office and goes, "Are you sending out ransom notes?" I get, "You'll never see your trade show leads again. How could anybody really think I was threatening them?" So there's a fine line between getting attention and being taken off the front line of sales if you do it wrong. But I want to emphasize that there's lots of ways to be creative. Some of the other things I've recommended is get a burner phone. For 20 bucks, you can go get a throwaway phone at 7-Eleven, pre-program it with your phone number, send it without any return address to a client, and say, press *2, and it'll direct dial your call. I've done so many different things. If you want to talk about them with me, I can go over a bunch of ideas, but 20 ideas in 20 minutes doesn't allow me enough time. Send a box that has things in it. Don't send a flat number 10 envelope. Stand out, be noticed. It's kind of one of the fun things about being in this industry. Number 3, who don't love Dumbo? Bigger is better, yes. And as a salesperson, I strongly urge you at all times to have 3 elephants on your desk. Elephants in this conversation is a huge potential client. Fill in the blank whoever that is for you. Is it AT&T? Whoever you think is a huge prospect that if you won that sale, you're not set for life, but they're going to throw a party for you at the office. Huge prospects. You may try to reach 20 people today in your cold calling, but if you have 3 prospects that deserve extra attention, maybe a ransom note, extra time, extra research to learn a little bit more about what they're doing and how they do it so you sound like an expert, put the time into those 3 experts. When you do sell to one of those elephants, replace them. You should always have 3 huge prospects that you're actively looking to sell to, and remove them only once you sell to them. Number 2. This is, again, painfully obvious, but I learned a long time ago that all things being equal, people tend to buy from people they like. And the opposite is true as well. If they don't like you, there's a good chance they're not going to buy from you. So back in the olden days, when you were selling a pop-up and the guy across the street was selling a pop-up, the client didn't know the differences really. He thought they were the same commodities. If you're charging $1,000 for that pop-up and the guy across the street is charging $2,000, that's a big difference. But I learned that if they like you better, they're willing to spend a little bit more money to work with someone they like on a commodity than they are with somebody they don't particularly care for. So it seems, again, obvious, but keep that in mind. You can't be best friends with everybody, but try to form a relationship with all your clients. And last but not least, number 1, we're in a creative industry. We're not selling boring things. We're selling creative concepts and marketing ideas. If you're not having fun, you're either doing it wrong or you have the wrong job. It's pretty simple. That's 20 and 20. Now, hopefully what I've done is planted some seeds with you that make you go, I knew that, or I didn't know that. If you've got questions, I encourage you, either ask them now, we can talk about it briefly, or feel free to send me a question. I'll send you some of the things I used to do that got attention, some of the more details on any one of those 20. I'm happy to send you these slides so that you can keep them and do that yourself. I'll even send you the notes that I have here in front of me. Mel, I'll ask you to tell me if there's any kind of notes there or chats that I can respond to here and now.
You have lots of comments in the chat section, Harold, so I would direct your attention to the chat section. People are sharing some of their own advice as far as best sales tips. So if you want to start at the bottom and kind of head back up, if you have any comments on those, that would be great. Okay, so is the first one, people hate to be sold, but love to buy. Always ask questions about their needs that lead to solutions. Yeah, again, it all comes back to, you can call yourself a salesperson, but that's not what we're doing. We're partnering, we're marketeers,
We're helping our clients sell more, so absolutely. Any tips for new sales reps who are new to the industry? Well, you may be new in sales, but my own path taught me that I'm kind of glad new salespeople don't know how to sell, because you're not selling as much as helping your client. What's their challenge? What is their boss going to use to guide what the success is defined as, and just help them accomplish that. You don't have to know the answers to everything. Get the questions, bring them back to the office. I guarantee you there's people there that will help you get those responses and answers put together so that you can respond to that. Being new is probably a benefit these days as opposed to being a seasoned vet who does the same thing every time you go in. Any tips for new? We just did. Don't prejudge. Absolutely. Mark says, never kill a good tactic or ad campaign because 10% of the audience are humorless people. Yeah, good advice. Mel, I want you to look at the top and find me questions because I'm reading without my glasses here. Always write customers.
Well, here's one. After you let your clients talk, get them to talk more. Ask questions that show further interest and prove to them that it's not all about you, but them.
Yeah. Again, that's putting the prospect in the same boat as you, not a wall between you where I'm selling and you're buying. If you get them on your side of the fence, the rest should be common sense and just lead. If you've got the right design or the right product, everything should work out just fine.
So Rachel made a comment, and I'm a little curious what that means. Always write the customer up. I don't know what that means. Even if they're not ready to buy, write them up so they have something to act on. Don't focus on your closing ratio. They cannot buy if you don't write them up. So what does that mean, Harold? Do you know?
I'm not sure, but the way I'm going to interpret that is every prospect that you reach out to and have a relationship with, you should have notes on. You should keep them in your files. And as you mentioned, somewhere in those 20 tips, the tips, the marketing blogs, there's reasons for you to reach out that they don't smell like salespeople. They smell like educators and marketeers. So if you have them on your list and they didn't buy from you today, that doesn't mean you don't stay in touch with them and keep educating them on the best ways to market at a trade show. You become the expert that way, and when the time is right, maybe they'll reach out to you. I'm not sure if that's what Rachel meant, but it makes sense.
Yeah, Mark commented that he thinks it's send them a quote. Here's a question for you, Harold. What is your feeling about sales? Should it still be in person, over the phone, or over email? People are answering. Oops, it just skipped on me. People are answering their phones less and less these days. Is there a percentage of each you recommend?
Yeah, so I'm going to try to answer that quickly instead of getting into a sales answer. Yeah, there's nothing that's inappropriate face-to-face on a show floor as long as you don't get kicked out of the show for selling on a show floor. Making an appointment to stop by and see them, a phone call or an email. They've all gotten sales for all of us. There's no one way that works. What are you best at? Do you have a great email with a subject line that works 80% of the time? Remember, nobody's going to buy from an email. All you're doing is saying, hey, look at me, I'm over here. You're just trying to grab their attention and engage in the conversation with them. If you can do that, then it's just a question of going through the steps. There's not one way. They all work, and they all have worked.
Well, Glenn had some great advice. Spend your client's money like it was your own. The value becomes inherent in the project.
Yeah, and again, it goes back to the relationship. If they see you wasting money, they're going to see that and feel that and know it. If they see you treating it like your money, they'll see that as well. Way to go, Glenn. Good call.
Yeah. I love this comment. Cold calling on the phone is hard, but commenting or asking a question to a post on LinkedIn or a blog is a great way to start a conversation and bypass the gatekeepers.
You know, I'm going to agree with that with an asterisk. Cold calling isn't hard. Who said that? That's not accurate. Now, getting told no 19 times in a row is not good for your ego, but let's not conflate that to say it's hard to do. Getting a phone number, making a call, introducing yourself, and sharing why you're calling is as simple as eating lunch. Getting better at it requires practice, but let's not call it hard. Let's call it There's ways to get better at it. There's ways to practice. There's ways to get more people to call to find lists, but I don't think that's considered hard.
Here's some more advice from Robin about LinkedIn. Keep up with your clients on LinkedIn because they are moving fast and furiously in the job market. Way to go, Robin. It's the best way to realize your clients have made changes.
Good call. Stay current. That's really good. All right. Well, look, we're at 11:30. We're 10 minutes. I think we spent 20 minutes on 20 tips. Again, I urge you, reach out to Mel and his team with their marketing tools. Feel free to reach out to Harold at classicexhibits.com. I'm happy to, if I don't have the information, as we just talked about, I'll find it for you and I'll get it to you. Thanks, Mel.
Thanks, everyone. And we have recorded this. We'll be sending out a link to the recording here in the next day or so. Thank you very, very much for attending the Fast and Furious webinar, and we'll have another one primed for you here in the next few weeks.